All right, welcome back. It's now time for us to get into the main interview here. It's a heated moment at the Bomas of Kenya, a process that is ending today at the Bomas of Kenya, where the electoral body, that is IBC, will be clearing all the presidential candidates, giving them that nod to run for the big seat come August 9th. From 57 down to 4 candidates, together with their running mates. That is a number that is standing as it is today. And on 9th, the IBC will gazette all the names of the candidates so far cleared across the country. And one gentleman who got the attention of the country yesterday is Muthiora Kariara. He's not new to the media. In 2017, he was also on the limelight as one of the youngest aspirants way back then. And this time around, he said, no, I have to go it again. But it seemed that that run came to a halt yesterday. I'm talking about Eliud Muthiora Kariara. He's not a new face here in station, and we're glad to have him once again. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Victor.
Right. You look so tired. It's been a marathon run.
It's been a grueling run. At least for once, I've woken up with the burden a little lessened, but nonetheless still focused in the liberation journey that we embarked on, because the job is not yet done. Yesterday was a minor bump on the road. We'll be back.
You'll be back?
Yes.
You decided to go the whole journey from 2017. It's a different ball game, and you said you want to give it a shot. How was it?
It's been tough because this is the second time that IEBC is standing in my way to being an option for Kenyans. In 2017, I started out as an independent presidential aspirant, but then I was never cleared. So I joined forces with Dr. Japheth Kavinga Kaluyu and ended up on the ballot as his running mate. We began our preparations in good time for the 2022 run. We even began the process of registering a party, the Great Nationhood Party, went through all the motions, got provisional registration, recruited members, but we were not given the nod to field candidates in this election. So for quite a bit of time, I have been through the motions. I have been learning the process. I've been doing checks and control tests in the system. And I can confidently say, though unfortunate, that this system is flawed. This system is going to fail Kenya.
We're going to get into the issue of system because, you know, the first person raising the system issue, as you know, as far as IBC is concerned. But then, to somebody who doesn't understand the whole process of being a presidential aspirant and getting cleared as a candidate ultimately, could you please just tell us behind the scenes? You know, for us, we are here in studio, Kenyans are watching from the other side of the screen, but you as the main person running for that political seat, just give us a feel and taste of what it is, what it's like to be on the front line.
Well, first and foremost, it starts with you having clarity about the core. And that takes a bit of introspection and self-doubt. But once you're clear about it, then you now look at the practicability of running, whether you'll be able to amass the required support and the resources to guide you through. Definitely, you need money.
The financial bit.
You need a good network of dependable people. And besides that, you need God's luck, as was evident for most of us in this race. So when you're running for president, number one, you have to have all the requirements met. Academic qualifications, there is the legal requirements as well. And then in your network, you have to have the right people. Like for me, who was running as an independent candidate, I needed a proposer and a seconder that is independent. I needed a running mate that is independent. And these required that, at least for the running mate and myself, if we had been employed as public officers, that we must have resigned by the 9th of February.
Yes,
so
that is 6 months.
It's quite an elaborate process. And I understand that we have to sieve and get the very best. Now, the most disappointing part is that we have Kenyans out there who have been calling for change. But when they see change dressed in faces that look like them, then again, they do not want that kind of change. They would rather fall back to the same old that has been tormenting them. So they brand us as jokers. But my question is, who decides who is a joker? And by the way, Victor, what is the joke?
What is the joke? That's according to Chebukati. He said that it's a bunch of jokers and he had to scale down the number. But it seems like running for presidency in this Kenya is not a walk in the park. Not in Kenya alone, but everywhere across the globe. Perhaps the kind of preparedness that goes, as a person, the mental preparedness, the physical, the financial, all those things put together, you can just sum them up. What is it like?
Well, it's arduous. Like I have told you, very taxing. If you're lucky on a good day, you'll sleep for at most 4 hours. Because before you go out there, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes planning that has to be done.
Yes.
You have to make sure that you have coordinated every move that you will make in the following day. And you do that in advance, and at the end of each day, you review how the plan was executed, so you see
with
where
meetings
to improve.
after meetings after meetings.
Yes.
Yes.
So it requires someone that is sober, focused, disciplined, and above all, patriotic. Because it's only the spirit of patriotism that will drive an individual to give themselves up to a task such as this. So it's not an easy thing to do. It's been confirmed, especially given the kind of electoral laws that we have and the latitude given to the returning officer. So, as I have cautioned before, anyone that intends to run for public office in Kenya needs to come prepared. It's not an easy thing.
It's not an easy thing because, it's not the first time that you are going for that particular seat. Last time you are running mate. This time around you gave it a shot. What drives you?
Well, I'm driven by the love for my country. I'm driven by the fact that of the people that have a chance of clinching the position of presidency, I see none capable and qualified to lift this nation from the sad state it is in. I see no one that will actually deliver the answers to the problems that Kenyans grapple with every day. And for that matter, I go out there looking to inspire more Kenyans to understand that we must all try. Otherwise, the quality of leadership we've had will not improve. We must all give it a try if we are qualified. That position is not reserved for a few, for people from certain families alone. And it's regrettable that almost 60 years since independence, we have an outgoing president who is a son of a former president, the first president of Kenya. And looking at the way things are set up right now, it's likely we will have the son of the first vice president of the Republic of Kenya. Yes, we have had 2 other presidents, but if you look at the setup, it says that Kenyan mothers and not capable of producing people who can lead this nation at that level, except those in those reserved families.
With all due respect, you know, let me just quote what Chebukati said, that it was a bunch of jokers, all right, loosely translated. But then now, with all due respect, don't you think you are biting too much that you could not chew?
Victor, I chewed everything that I needed to
again,
bite.
As compared to other players, your competitors out there in the field, without mentioning names.
I chewed everything that I was supposed to bite. Whatever requirements they needed me to provide, I did within that very short duration. Our constitution allows for me to run for president.
Right.
Just as much as you're allowed to breathe, Muthiora Kariara is allowed by law to run for president because he is qualified. So when someone that is in charge of such a process comes out and brandishes such harsh terms as a bunch of jokers, we have to ask ourselves where this nation is headed. This process has been handled with a lot of discrimination, with a lot of contempt, and the results are going to be regrettable. I have told you, nobody has the power to decide who is a joker and who is not. That preserve is left to the people of Kenya. Kenyans should be allowed to choose who their leaders are, not a few people that come together and decide to select for Kenyans who is going to lead them. Our constitution is very clear on that front. They said you needed to get supporters from across the counties. I did that, and I was not the only one. All the candidates made an attempt.
Those are legal requirements.
Yes.
All right. But then, you know, it becomes even more difficult for independent candidates like you.
That's true.
How to describe, again, the behind the scenes, or in each and every step of your preparation for you to be a president of this particular nation and what have you, you know, you have to marshal the numbers, you have to go through the counties and get the signatures and all those requirements. How is it like for an independent candidate?
Well, it's easier for people who come from parties because parties already have an established structure that supports them. For an independent candidate, you have to create these for yourself.
Yes.
And if you had not planned well, it's a process that will harass you in a big way. I have the advantage that it's the second time I'm doing this. So I had people on the ground. I knew what the process is like. But I can tell you, given the new laws that were instituted, it's an impossible task. Impossible because, like you have seen, none of the independent aspirants made it. And it's not because we did not qualify. It's because that discretion is in a class of people over whom we have no access. And I hope we are going to change that. We must seek electoral justice.
Yes.
And we must do it now. Because if you sincerely want to end corruption, since it's Kenya's Achilles, then you must start at elections.
Yes.
If the process is flawed, it's going to produce flawed results. Someone has mentioned in your show earlier that you needed to buy IDs from members of public. So if I have to bribe you or pay you to give me your ID, you see, our engagement from the very beginning is wrong. So if eventually I go forward and I get elected, I would be validating an illegal process. So we must rethink this whole thing and, given our culture, eliminate these laws that end up invalidating a process that was otherwise supposed to be a valid process.
You know, again, with all due respect, don't you think you stand a chance of getting or running for another political seat rather than being that one of the president?
I do.
Why that?
Because given the socio-economic transformation that needs to happen for the people of Kenya, the only office that affords the tools and instruments to effect that is the office of president. As an MCA, MP, senator, or even governor or women representative, Kenya has a structure where you take instructions from above. Party leadership determines policy and its implementation.
Yes.
So you may have very brilliant ideas, but because your party leader, the president, thinks otherwise, those will never see light of day.
Yes.
The fish is rotten in our case, and the rotting began at the head as it happens. So if indeed we want to fix this nation, we must not beat around the bush because we could be beating around the wrong bush. We need to go where the problem is, and the problem is in the ruling elite.
Yes.
So as president, I would have latitude and leverage to bring the change that Kenya so desperately needs. And I was told yesterday that I'm a young man. You've just reiterated it. But I'm asking, should my rights be stepped upon because I am young, because I can run in another election? I am qualified today. I am ready today. And Kenya, unfortunately, does not have the luxury of time. Kenya's situation is dire. We cannot wait for another misrule and mismanagement of our economy for another 5 years.
That's the same way we don't have leisure of time. And that is why I needed to take a break. And when we come back, I want us to talk about what happened yesterday at the Bomas of Kenya. The issue of electoral process. Several players have said that the IBC is not, independent as it is, and so much more. So we are taking a break, and we come back. We have just started this discussion with Muthiora Kariara when everything became a bit hot at the IBC center at Bomas. He banned his voter's card. He'll tell us why after this. Muthiora Kariara with me in studio. So we're talking about the issue to do with the electoral process. You went through the process from the word go, and there you made it. First of all, congratulations, because it takes a lot for you to get to that final stage. Did you just wake up in the morning and said, I want to run for the big seat in this country?
No, it's been a journey. From back then when I was young, I dreamt that someday I would be called upon to serve this nation. It was not clear in what capacity, but then as I grew older, I realized that the higher you go, the more influence you'd have. And given where our nation is, like I mentioned earlier, the position that would clearly afford me the latitude to get that which needs to be done would be the presidency. So I've been a leader my whole life. Fortunately, I'm the eldest in my family, and after my dad passed away, I had to grow up fairly fast. In school, I was trusted with leadership responsibilities, and eventually, even when I transitioned to the university, to curb the culture of strikes and student unrests and disruption of academic programs, I ventured into student leadership, and that's where I first held an elective office in the executive of Students' Organization of Nairobi University, SONU. So it's been a journey. When I connect the dots backwards.
So you have a degree?
Yes, that I can confirm.
So you have a degree?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, I studied BSc Mathematics. Back then, they would only admit 10 at Chiromo campus of the University of Nairobi.
Mathematics.
And
I don't know what Jane thinks about that. Mathematics. Yeah. Okay.
And another thing, Victor, I will tell you, as part of why I was running in this race, just an auxiliary reason, I was running to test the hypothesis that Kenya is an ethno-majoritarian democracy. We envisioned to have a multi-party democracy, but the way it functions, it's far from how we pictured it.
For you to run for a political seat in this country, you must have network. And you've talked about it. Clearly, you don't have a network for you to run for president of this country.
I disagree, Victor. I have just confirmed to you that
we've not seen you travel across the country from Moyale to...
What do you mean? Victor,
we've not.
I have been to all the corners of this nation. Otherwise, I would not have been able to raise the signatures that were required of me.
We've not had your campaigns. We've not covered your campaigns.
That is because...
Lamu, Mombasa, Kisumu, whichever.
That is because the media has been accused is biased. For all our events, including when I unveiled my running mates, just across the fence at the Kenya National Theatre, I invited all media houses, and KBC could not cross the fence to come cover the event.
We were there.
You were not there.
We were there.
I can confirm. I was invited here on the second day to come talk about it. So indeed, the media on biasness stands indicted as far as I'm concerned, just as much as the IEBC is. So you have chosen not to cover our activities and events. And it's regrettable that you would accuse us of not being out there hunting for these votes. The only way we would have been able to meet the requirements of supporters was because we had networks on the ground. Otherwise, you cannot do such an activity in 2 weeks. You would need people on the ground. And the fact that we were able to get this done confirms that we had an established and elaborate network. Whether you want us to ask those people to come forth is another question, but that would have been confirmed on the 9th of August. But clearly, someone else had an idea as to who is supposed to be on the ballot and who is not.
Do you belong to the group of jokers?
Victor, I asked, what is the joke? The joke is Kenyans have been calling for change.
Right.
But then instead of embracing it when it shows up, they fall back to their default settings. Remember, I just mentioned that this is an ethno-majoritarian democracy where we think that we hold elections every 5 years, when in fact it's fastest election. And just to sanitize, we cast votes when in fact from the very beginning, whoever is going to ascend to the position of president has been predetermined by the ruling elite. You've had them being called system. So, Victor, the joke is on us. That when we have great leaders who can drive this nation forward, instead of allowing them the latitude to have all their hands building Kenya, they have to be fighting the same Kenyans using one hand and only using the other hand in nation building. That is regrettable. We are in a race where the prey, instead of screaming and kicking as it's being dragged to the cooking pot,
decides to remain silent.
That is boiling, they are celebrating. It's our future we are talking about. I have told you we do not have the luxury of time. In 2017, we told you that you'd be making a mistake to elect NASA or Jubilee. Kenyans ended up electing Jubilee and giving the second biggest vote to NASA. Jubilee let us down. NASA absconded on the duty we gave them to oversight these governments when they have the position of minority leadership in parliament. and we are where we are, and we seem like we are going to repeat this mistake again.
Okay, let me just be a devil's advocate here and ask you a question. When you compare yourself with the Deputy President William Ruto, Honorable Raila Odinga, all of them have muscle for, for all intended purposes, and then they have a history in their participation in the democratic space we are enjoying right now in the country. Where do you belong? Do you think you match them?
Well, it's not about matching them. It's about what is right for this nation. If experience makes a country degenerate to a point where corruption is officially accepted as a culture,
yes,
then I do not need that kind of an experience. If experience and exposure and muscle means being able to divide Kenyans along tribal lines, along party lines that are not based on issue or policy, then that is not the relevant experience that will drive a nation forward. And I don't want it. Look at me as someone that is competent, qualified, untainted, a man of integrity that means well for this nation, and judge me based on my past record. I've been in these now for over 5 years, and not a single time has my name been mentioned unfavorably. That's the kind of a person I am.
All right. Let's take a pause there and play. There's a clip here that I want my director to play before we continue with this discussion. Director, if you can just have that clip, kindly.
Independent candidate Muthiora Kariara was the second to appear before the commission Monday, expressed his frustrations.
I may be young, but I have a stake. This should be my voice, and I know there are those that believed they needed a different.
All right. So that was happening yesterday at the Bomas of Kenya when you were cleared, and clearly you're not happy about the whole process. Before you took a lighter and set that voter's card on fire, somebody would ask, where did you get the lighter from?
I asked for whoever had a light in the audience, and unfortunately or fortunately, someone had it and they passed it over to me.
That sounds like a scripted bit of that, the whole play. It was scripted.
In what sense?
Were you ready for that determination by the IBC chair?
No, I was not ready. I went to Bomas prepared that they would clear me, but then they had already decided who they were going to pass and who they were not going to pass. And as I said yesterday, we think we are heading into an election, but it's actually a selection. And the most heartbreaking thing is when we would have had great choices to make, we are forced to choose which of two wolves will devour us for dinner. And unfortunately, Kenyans seem happy to make that decision. Elections, according to our constitution, are supposed to happen every 5 years. I was taking part in this because it's my democratic right. I need a choice. There are Kenyans out there that believe we need a different variety of choices. And given the fact that we are not allowed by law to cast a blank vote when you're not in favor of the candidates that have offered themselves, I chose not to continue with this process because clearly it's not an election, Victor, if it's not free, fair, and credible, which this election is turning out to be. And why I say that, I'm not the only one that has raised issues. Recently, a competitor talked about almost 1 million voters in their strongholds disappearing from the IEBC register.
Another competitor also said that 800,000 votes were also missing somewhere or added somewhere.
Yes.
Right.
In 2007, trouble began when Right Honorable Raila Odinga showed up at a polling station in Langata and his name was missing on the register. These games that the commission is playing are too dangerous for a country with a history like the one that we have.
Let me ask you a direct question. Why did you ban your voter's card?
Victor, that happened yesterday. Whatever happened, the rejection of my candidature. We are here today.
No, I just want to get it clear because
I am making a point.
It's out there.
That what I'm addressing now going forward is electoral justice.
Why did you ban your voter's card right in front of the returning officer, the presidential returning officer, Chebukati?
Victor, yesterday as an aspirant, I was answerable to the chairman of the IEBC because he was the returning officer for that matter.
Right.
He rejected my bid. I showed up and they said that of the 24 required counties that I had presented, I was short by 5. Fortunately, I was prepared. I had the 5 that they said I did not have. I asked for more time. And the chairman told me that if I am able to do this within the next 20 minutes and be back, they will consider it. Right. And he referred me to his officers. We went and sorted out the matter. Although it was lukewarm, the reception was, it was like we were bothering them. Our fate had already been sealed. So when we came back and they looked at the documents, they returned the same verdict within 5 minutes.
Instead of 20
Other
minutes.
people had been given days to correct the shortfalls in their lists of supporters.
Right.
Professor Wajakoya, for instance, had a couple of days. Others have had hours. We were told at 10 minutes past 3 that if we are not back by 3:30, our application will be rejected.
Right.
We did what we needed to do, and still it was not enough. To get to where we got, it took sweat, blood, and tears. People volunteered because they believed in our candidacy, because they believed in a new voice. This voice is supposed to be exercised at the ballot, but because the process is not fair,
right,
I feel that I cannot continue in this sham election that this is turning out to
and
be.
Decided to ban your voter's card.
Well, Victor, I'm just stating things as they happened yesterday.
And I've also asked you questions based on what happened yesterday.
And I have told you as much.
So you won't vote. Basically, you won't vote.
Victor, this is it. So you may understand how unnecessary some things the commission does are. For example, when you're registered as a voter, you're given a voter's card. A voter's card that costs money to print. Like for the over 20 million Kenyans, you can imagine the cost. They give you a voter's card that you will never use anywhere. Yes, it is symbolic that it is your voice. But when they do not give you an opportunity to elect the leader that you want, when they decide who you're going to vote for, then that voice has been threatened and will never be heard.
Okay.
So I would rather not exercise it in that way.
You have got copies here that have got stamps and signatures from the IBC. Which copies are these?
Well, we have the handing over notes from IEBC when we took our documents to them, and that happened on the 25th of May. They were satisfied that we met the threshold back then. After reviewing the documents we had presented for them, that's when they arrived at the conclusion that we were short by 5 counties. they chose to not communicate these to us in advance and waited until yesterday to tell us this.
Okay, perhaps maybe my camera just zoom in this one. This is the handing and taking over the report of the list of supporters of presidential candidates.
Yes.
It says that number of booklets received is 25, number of records and files received. This has been cancelled here. I can't see it. The number of soft records and files received is 24.
Yes.
And it was received on the 25th of May.
That's what happened.
All right. So number of booklets received 25, and then number of files received and submitted 24, which means you submitted as per the IBC requirements.
Yes.
Thank you very much. What about the other one that you have?
Well, this is the report form from yesterday.
Okay.
The one that says I did not pass.
So here we have got application for registration.
Yes.
Rejected due to 1, insufficient supporters, 2, insufficient identification documents to support the list of supporters, and lastly, running mate electoral code of conduct not provided.
Yes. That was the initial report. But then we sorted all that, and we were supposed to do that in 20 minutes. So after we did it in 20 minutes, after they reviewed everything, then they gave the final report, which is the second part that you should read, that they found our application invalid, even after we met the conditions that they had said we had not met. Victor, we are not a government, and yes, we may have a network on the ground, but our resources are a little limited. When we presented ID cards to IEBC, we did it in a bundle. They had said we are supposed to serialize. Due to the time limit, we were not able to go through this whole process. But we gave them everything that Kenyans out there gave us. So it was up to them to make sure that everything was how it should be. I'm disappointed that we have turned our elections into a money game, that the only people who will go forward are those who have money to bribe voters to give them identification documents and signatures, and hire teams to organize these in a way that will make it easy for the commission, which is taxpayer funded, to process.
I would ask you, don't you think that, whatever happened yesterday at the Bomas of Kenya was more of an emotional reaction?
No. Nothing I do is emotional.
It looked like an activism, some sort of?
Activism is not a bad thing. It's just a citizen that is engaged. There's nothing wrong
do you regret what you did yesterday?
Victor, what I did yesterday was show up at an appointment at a national function. And I expressed my view that I'm dissatisfied with how the commission has carried itself. And going forward, I'm going to focus on delivering electoral justice for Kenya. Our elections must cease being a festival of idiots, where certain people that consider themselves smart decide for the people who is going to be in charge of their affairs.
Okay, because as we continue the days, just with 62 days to go to the polls.
Yeah.
What are we likely to see from Muthiora now? Is this the end of the road?
No, it's not the end of the road. I've been on a journey to elevate Kenya's political awareness and education.
Yes.
I will continue to do that. Right now, I see the urgency of ensuring that we institute measures to fix our electoral process. I will go big on educating the public because, Victor, you can imagine what will happen on the 9th if over 800,000 people show up to vote in William Ruto's stronghold and their names are missing on the on the voters list, they are told they can't vote. Victor, I'm not even sure that the 9th will end should such a thing happen. So I will continue to push the commission to do all it takes to deliver free, fair, and credible elections. And that starts by not discriminating against certain aspirants based on their background, financial capability, or track record. All you are supposed to have to run in an election is for you to be registered as a voter, and for the position of governor and president to have a degree, which I had. I was discriminated against. Over 52 other aspirants were discriminated against. Their right was not exercised. And I would like for Kenyans to ask themselves, if people who are as exposed as we are, in positions of privilege, so to speak, can have their rights denied in this way, then what happens to that ordinary Kenyan?
Let me just ask a question, because when you say that 52 others were discriminated against, then you can imagine if, because the whole process of having all the presidential candidates submitting their documents and papers before the returning officer, that is Chebukati, how are we going to have 52 presidents, you know, all the names in the ballot, if the whole process of vetting was not going to take place?
It would not be the biggest
it is not a
ballot
per se, it was just a process.
It would not be the biggest ballot in the world. Other countries have had bigger ballot papers, and those countries did not cease to exist. They are still going concerns, they are still doing okay. So my rallying call is let the people decide. Victor, when you finally answer me what the joke is, then we can start looking for the jokers. But in this case, when instead of addressing the real issues, we are fighting independent candidates, we are fighting aspirants who have never been a problem to this system, then I guess the joke is on us.
Are you bitter?
I am disappointed. I am frustrated. I had so much optimism in building an electoral institution that would stand the test of time. I don't see that happening if the attitude is not going to change.
Right. Given time and space to meet the IEBC chair of Chebukati, what would be that, you know, one-on-one you'd have with him? You know, gentleman's talk, you know, sober conversation. What would you tell Chebukati?
Well, I would tell him that the role of the Kenyan people is sovereign, and at no point should any public officer sabotage that position. The Kenyan people should be given the freedom to elect whomever they please. Good or bad, that power lies with them. And to the Kenyan people, I will say, I can only show you the door, but eventually it is you, the Kenyan people, that must walk through that door. An unfair and unjust process cannot deliver justice to the people. This process needs to be looked into before it puts us in a jam like other elections have done in the past.
Finally, as we come to a close, because at the end of the day, we'll only have one president. It's a democratic space, and of course, Kenya must only have one president. You know what?
Ethno-majoritarian democracy. That's my conclusion at the moment, which we must look to fix.
Democracy or democracy? Let me get it right.
Democracy.
Crazy of being crazy.
Yes.
Not democracy.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know how this is going to pan out, but then, you know, the whole process, as you call it, was, you know, a sham, so be it, because at the end of the day, we are going to only have one president. But then, my final question to you, now that you're not going to vote come 9th of August, will you consider running for a political seat in the future? If given an appointment, will you take any political appointment to the country?
Victor, I'm taking a day at a time. if I'm to run in future, it will depend on the success of the people's political education awareness programs that are going to be instituted. And I'm going to go all out to ensure that we liberate our people from the shackles that have held them down in terms of understanding their responsibilities as citizens. If we succeed at unlocking that potential where Kenyans can vote using their conscience alone, not based on tribe, not based on which political bigwig one supports, not based on parties, because parties have proved to be a farce in this country, then, Victor, I will consider offering myself up for election in future. But otherwise, it's regrettable that in this election where we have one of the leading contending parties having people who fought for our second liberation that delivered multi-party democracy, it's regrettable that we are at the pinnacle of a democracy situation.
Muthiora, Kariara, thank you so much. Nonetheless, we just have to congratulate you because some of us would have not made it to that particular point, and many of the aspirants did not make it to that point where you are. It's been a long journey, but you know, at the end of the day, we will have one president who Kenyans will pick on 9th of August. Thank you so much for your time. We look forward to having you more on the show.
Thank you very much, Victor.
Sure.
But allow me to just leave you with a question.
Go ahead.
Yes, we will have elections on the 9th of August and in future. But then, are they elections when they are not free, fair, and credible? The Commission was asked about outstanding issues from 2017. They gladly offered an essay in response, saying they have addressed the issues. I remember in the last election, an officer of the IEBC was brutally murdered. That has never been addressed. People died in the run-up to the August 8th, 2017 election. All those matters have never been addressed. Yet the Commission, even before opening the servers that they were told to open, throws an essay at Kenyans and tells us that these issues have been addressed. We are teetering on a disaster. I hope we can fix it before it gets there.
We also hope so. And I hope Kenyans are going to make a wise decision come 9th of August. And Chebukati-led team, the questions have been raised about the credibility and how the elections will be handled in a free, fair, and a transparent manner. All that will be coming on the 9th of August when Kenyans will go to the polls. Muthiora Kariara, thank you so much for your time. That has been Muthiora Kariara, who was an independent candidate running for the president of this particular country. But then now, it all ended yesterday at the Bomas of Kenya. As we say, we still congratulate you because it's a tedious process, but nonetheless, you made it to where you are yesterday. All right, that's where we wrap it up with Muthiora Kariara. We're taking a break, but the show, we still have got so much lined up for you. After this break, we'll be right back.